Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. Graham, you've been telling me all about this MecLabs group that you've been joining. And our previous podcast guest, Elle, was somebody you met in that group. So again, today, we've got somebody else that you've made contact with, networked with through this new club that you're in.
Well, it's not really a club. It's kind of it's almost like a university, I guess, with some brilliant leadership who've got some fantastic things that are really stretching. I have to say, I'm struggling to master the material, but I've got every intention of doing so. Well, one of the people on that group, we call it a guild. It's a bit of a fancy title. It's just a bunch of people who want to get better and share and hopefully improve the world. One of the people on there is Mike King. Now, Mike is from Michigan in the United States, and he's a really nice bloke. But he also is going to talk to us today about high ticket sales campaigns. And you've learned an awful lot, Mike. And well, first of all, welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's an honor.
Well, no, it's our honor, honestly, because first of all, I've done a little bit of research about you, Mike, and I have to say you're a really impressive chap, and you've had a heck of a backstory. But let's start now, because your professional job is all about providing help to people who want to improve, I guess, conversion of sales for high ticket items. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So for the last 2 years, I've been nothing but focused on improving the metrics for businesses that rely on some sort of call booking model to sell their services. And those services have all been high ticket. So helping them optimize their funnels, optimize their ads, optimize the whole process to increase conversion, lift revenue, and make more profit at the end of the day.
And one of your clients is Grant Cardone, and well, I mean, if you haven't heard of Grant Cardone, then you've been living under a rock for the last 10 years or so. But you actually work with him to actually help his business. So what kind of things do you do for Grant that actually makes him more money, which he don't really need, does he? Let's face it.
No, yeah, he's got a pretty good lump sum of money over there. But yeah, I do exactly what I just told you for one of his business lines, which is Cardone University. It's kind of been his staple business for the last 16 years. And so I was brought in to see if I could help improve the metrics in that business. I had been talking to my business coach who, was saying I had a good skill set, but he's like, if you ever get into an opportunity where you can work with a client, where you can actually manage the P&L and see how what you're doing marketing wise affects the P&L, that'll be the next place for you to go. And it's a long story, but that opportunity presented itself with Grant. And then that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years with him. So managing the ads, handling the strategy, working with the other team members to help optimize the returns
You,
for this business line.
you, I mean, it seems like there's an awful lot going on there, Mike. So, because I mean, Kevin's really bright. He's got it all up there already. So, but I'm a little bit dim. So, effectively, I'd rather you just split that up a little bit so we can all understand it a bit more. So, if you can you sort of almost like at a Billy Basic level explain the sort of things that you would do?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you a little bit more context. So this business line sells online sales training. So companies will buy it. They will enroll their sales team in the training. The training is done by Grant virtually. They can opt in to have a sales coach as well, support them. And so it's really almost like a SaaS product that the sales team is selling. So what we do is we run advertising on different networks, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, to drive traffic to a funnel that they opt in, and we'll get to this because this is a huge learning thing, huge learning that we've made in the last 12 months. But we drive them to a funnel. They will opt in for something, and then they will have the option of booking a call with someone on the sales team to discuss that lead magnet or that opt-in item that they bought or that downloaded, and how they can implement that into their business.
Yeah.
And then obviously they get on the sales call, they speak with the sales rep will help them out. And then the sales rep will do a demo of the training and then hopefully close the deal. And then that'll move from there into support, where they'll get set up with their account for them and all their team members. And then a coach if they opted in from there. And then they'll service that client either for 12 months, 24 months, or 36 months, whatever the contract length that they agreed to on the sales call. So that's kind of what that looks like. So what I'm doing on a daily basis is I'm having meetings with my copywriter. I'm having meetings with my creative director. I'm having meetings with the video and graphics team, who all help support my strategy in how we can get more exposure, which means create better ads, write better copy that increase the throughput on that funnel so that we can get more calls for the sales team. And then I'm working with the sales team to improve the processes of how we're tracking those leads, not necessarily how they're selling. We have our sales director, Todd. He takes care of all that, and he's great at that. But what are they hearing on the phone calls? What are the objections they're getting? What is it that's making people buy? So I can take all of that stuff back into what I'm doing and just hone in more on the strategy and use those types of things in the copywriting and in the creatives that we're developing.
That sounds like an awful lot of work. But then again, we're talking about high ticket. So just put a number on that. So as soon as we start talking about numbers, Kevin's going to be all over this.
I was just going to ask exactly the same question, Graham.
But we see we like if we were allowed to marry, we'd probably be an ace for each other because we are on the same wavelength. But I can't imagine being married to you, Kevin, and that'd
I
be
couldn't
awful.
imagine being married to you either, Graham. Two grumpy old blokes.
Well, I know that'd be awful. But how much does somebody have to pay to get a sort of the basic level, I guess?
Yeah, it's going to depend on their company size, but they're and how long of a contract they want to enter into. But we're talking, maybe at the low end, $12K, and yesterday just had a contract come in for over $100K.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. So presumably Grant allows you to keep some of that.
Yeah, Grant compensates me very well. I get a retainer, plus I get a percentage of the revenue that's generated.
Well, that's very generous of him. But have you ever flown in one of those planes that he owns?
No, not yet. The home office there is in Florida. I've been down there. But I haven't had the opportunity to take a ride in his jet.
From where you are, that's a long journey. I mean, presumably you either probably flew down because it's
I did. It's like I think it's 2.5 hour flight.
Wow, it's an amazing country, America, Kevin.
It certainly is. It is one of my favorite places to go. But I'm listening to what Mike is saying with quite a lot of interest, because we're moving into a very similar sort of field, that rather than selling memberships to individuals, we're selling increasingly boot camps to corporates. Rather than putting a public one on where we're selling places to individuals, we're looking to fill a boot camp or multiple boot camps with folk from one organization. And the price points aren't a lot different to the ones that Mike's just mentioned. So I'm really interested in comparing what we're doing with finance people to what Mike's doing to attract in sales teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main campaign I handle, but interesting that you bring that up. We're doing a live training this Saturday. I should say Grant's doing a live training, and I've just spent the last 3 weeks running a campaign to fill that up
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, all important stuff.
The, and a live training then is presumably it's on something like Zoom or something of that nature, and then people turn up and there's some sort of an agenda, and the whole idea is that they go away enriched by the things that Grant's talking about. So in this particular, what's his deliverable on the day?
Yeah, so the deliverable will just be some assets to help those individuals get the outcome that they're looking for sooner. Grant's going to give away a ton of value on that day. He'll probably teach for over 3 hours.
Oh,
Yeah, and then the deliverables will be a package. I think it's $297, and it's basically a toolbox of different options, resources, plus coaching calls that will help people get to that outcome faster if they want it.
well, I can't imagine, Kevin, you teaching for 3 hours. I mean, they'll be throwing themselves off cliffs, wouldn't they?
Well, Graham, actually, as we record this next week, we've got the Grow CFO Global Finance Summit. No, I'm not speaking for 3 hours, but
Goodness.
we're running from 3 p.m. in the afternoon through to 9 in the evening
Crikey.
on 2 consecutive days. So we've got a dozen sessions, and we've lined up a whole string of really interesting looking speakers.
I've seen a little bit of that, Kevin, and you've done an amazing job, and I'll never take it away from you. But I mean, as a finance guy, you make a brilliant marketer. So, I think you should give up finance and just concentrate on marketing and selling. But I mean, your background, Mike, you were obviously. I know a little bit about the background because you've shared it on your YouTube, on your Facebook channel, that I saw a little clip of that, and it was quite. It was a lot. It was quite emotional, and so give us if you take us back to when you were a bit younger. I know people talk about grades and all that kind of stuff, ages and so forth, but when you get to big school in the UK, you're about 11. So 11 and then if you leave, you can leave at 16 or you can leave at 18. So basically, at that sort of period, you had quite a challenging time at home, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, probably until I went to college, to be honest with you, was a very challenging time. Even up until I graduated college, a lot of dysfunction in my home just because of the home environment. I mean, by the time I was 10, my dad had done 3 different stints in prison. So as you can imagine, my mom was a single mom trying to raise 3 kids, often working 2 to 3 jobs to support us. So she'd be gone all day and I'd be helping take care of my brother and sister, and deal with that, which had its own challenges. And then when I was 15, my dad, he just showed up one day. He had disappeared the last time he got out of prison when I was 10. Don't know where he went. Yeah, but when he showed up, it was like Christmas. It was the best day of my life because I always just wanted my dad to be there to see me play sports and to do the things in my head that I thought boys did with their dad. And he was around for probably about 2 months. And then unfortunately, him and my mom got into one heck of an argument. And that led to my dad throwing or showing up. I don't know if he went away. I came home from school. They were arguing. I didn't want to deal with it. So I went down to my bedroom, turned the music up as loud as I could to drown them out. And I fell asleep on my bed. And later on that evening, I heard a loud smashing noise of glass breaking, and it woke me up out of my sleep. And I ran upstairs through the kitchen, and in our living room, we had these big windows that you could see out into the yard. And my dad was out in the yard and he had his shirt off and he was on some kind of drug. He was high, so high. I mean, he was just screaming profanities at my mom. And I looked down and there was like a good, 5-pound rock or so that he had picked up and thrown it through the glass window of our front door. And that was the noise that woke me up. So, here I am just being like, Dad, what are you doing? And he's totally oblivious, screaming at my mom. And then my mom came around the corner and she had the phone in her hand and she called out his name and she said, John Henry King, if you don't get out of here right now, you're going back to prison. And my dad, in an instant, I'm talking, it was crazy. It's like he woke up from whatever trance he was under and he was stone cold sober when she said that. And he looked at me with his eyes real bright and he turned and he ran. He drove semi trucks over the road for his job and he had the semi parked in the front of the yard by the road. He went and ran to that, jumped in, took off down the road, and disappeared again. And that kind of set into a 6-year period of him showing up every 2 years on major life events for me. So he showed up when I graduated from high school and then disappeared. He showed up again tragically when my brother took his life when I was a sophomore in college and then disappeared. And then he showed up for the final time. I shouldn't say he showed up. He called me for the final time when I was going to graduate from college. And he told me at that time that he had stage 4 liver cancer. He never made it to my graduation, but he called me a few days afterwards and asked me if I'd come see him because he was in town. So I went there to see him. And that was the last time I saw him alive. He died shortly after that. So,
I mean, it's such a terrible situation that you found yourself in, but the one thing it must have built in you is this fortitude. And is your mum still with you? Is she still alive?
yeah, my mom is.
Yeah. But you obviously had so many, I don't know, so many things that have been drawn out of you, but there was something about you that's taken you from that situation to now being a family man. I saw the picture of your wife. You clearly, you know, she's too good for you. I mean, way
Yeah, I
too good
definitely
for you.
married up.
But you're out. But then again, well done. I mean, you outperform in most things. But basically, you've gone from a real tragedy to series of tragedies to something now where you're obviously a role model for your own children. You're going to put that right in your life. You have God in your life as well, which basically helps shape the things that you're doing. But you've got this business, but you've also turned to how you can become a better husband, father, man.
Yeah.
What was it that kind of first triggered that? Because we've covered the career a little bit. We can come back to that. But what was it that triggered this sort of man thing and helping other people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, part of it comes out of not having a dad myself and trying to figure out this whole thing of what does that look like. And, I was really blessed. God blessed me growing up by putting other men that could be good role models in my life.
Right.
And I was naturally very observant because my dad was very good well, as you probably realize, or maybe you don't, at telling me what I wanted to hear. And then he would never follow through. Like every time he got out of prison, he would say he was never going back. He was going to be there for us kids. Every time he would show up out of the blue, he would say the same old thing and then he would disappear. So it taught me at a very young age, like to pay attention to what people say and see if their actions line up with that. So, but what really pushed me into helping other people is I was just struggling. Something happened in my life after I got married, and I found myself kind of in a pit of despair. And it was funny. I came from a finance background, so the company I was working at that time, a guy there, he just came to me out of the blue, and he said, "Hey, my church is starting this thing for men. You should go and check it out. It'd be helpful for you." And he didn't know anything, right? And so long story short, I ended up going to this thing. It was like a 26-week program. And I was put at this table with these 5 different guys. We were all at various stages of our life. One guy was an older gentleman, been married a long time, very successful, who worked for Tony Robbins. Another guy was ran a very successful hotel in Chicago, but he had just went through a very nasty divorce. There was me. There was a younger guy who was just getting out of college. We probably scared him. And then there was one other guy who was our leader of our table who had been married for a long time. Was a very solid person. But every week we would go through this book, and this book would ask really tough questions, and then challenge you to be vulnerable with the guys at your table around those questions. And that kind of started me. First, it pulled me out of this depression that I was in. It surrounded me with these guys, and the guy that was the leader there, he asked me if me and my wife wanted to join his small marriage group, which we ended up doing. And then through that, I learned that these guys in this small marriage group, there was probably like 10 of us, they would go away and rent a house for a weekend once every year. And they would basically take what we were doing at the table there with the guys that would go away. But it would be far more intense for that entire weekend. And guys just shared their stories and the stuff they had been through in their life and that they were dealing with. And it was amazing because it was complete transparency, and none of these guys were afraid to be honest in what they were actually dealing with in their life. And two, it was very transformational because it brought a lot of healing by just being able to speak those things and share them. So that was kind of the next step in that progression. And then I ended up going away to a men's retreat that was kind of like that weekend, but longer, over 5.5 days. And that really just put this fire in me after going on that retreat and being like, there's all these things I grew up that I had no idea about because they don't teach it in school, that are so helpful in life with dealing with hard situations and trauma. And marriage and kids and all that, because all that stuff is naturally hard because you're growing and you're learning. I was like, I got to do something to help other guys so they don't make the same mistakes that I made because of my brokenness from not having a dad be there. So I've been very intentional in doing so. So I've been back to volunteer at that retreat. It's twice a year, every year since then. That was in 2016. So now I'm one of the leaders here in Michigan for that organization. And then I do some other work through 2 other organizations here locally as well that all focus on, just mentoring men and coming alongside them and helping them. And it's just been an incredible journey. And I love doing it. I love seeing guys come on the retreats and they're sizing each other up and their arms folded, and by the time the retreat's done, they're hugging each other, they're telling each other they love them, and then their wives sometimes show up to pick them up, and their wives are like, who is this person? This is a completely different person. What happened to my husband? Because the truth is the things that happen to us in life as guys, we like to stuff them down and just press on, which is good at times, right? Sometimes we got to do that, but we learn very quickly that we never go back and address those things, and we lie to ourselves by saying, oh, it's no big deal, or I'll be okay, things like that, when really those things do matter, and it's not okay that those things may have happened to you, and by you completely ignoring them, it's just hardening your heart. And because you harden your heart in those situations, think of it like a cup, right? That's full of water. And those situations that make you harden your heart are like dirt at the bottom of the cup. And because you never get that dirt out, anytime anything happens in your life, that cup gets stirred up. And your kids, your wife, your friends, the people, and the businesses or at the companies you work with that you say you care about, they drink out of that cup. Well, no one in their right mind would give someone a drink from a dirty cup. But because you don't know these things and you've never dealt with them, you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. So
you're actually describing what it feels like to be a Leeds United supporter. We have we have a dirty cup, and every now and again somebody stirs it up, and we end up like me. I mean, it's one of those challenges. It's up and down, but it's a brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
You obviously help people, and you're dedicated to helping people. It's amazing that you've stuck at it since 2016.
Yeah. So, Mike, I can really see this is lighting you up. You're talking about that side of your life almost with more enthusiasm than you are the marketing piece that you're doing with Grant and Cardone University. What are the superpowers that you bring along to this sort of thing?
Yeah. I would just say the ability to observe and the ability to listen. And I guess God's just blessed me with an uncanny ability for people to trust me. I don't know what it is, but people will tell me their deepest, darkest secrets, and we won't even know each other that long
Wow.
because
Go get Kevin started, whatever you do. We'll be here all day, Mike. But
yeah, they trust me, and that's an honor. Yeah, so I would say probably those things. There's probably some more. Probably just my willingness to be vulnerable. I've shared a lot on my Facebook page about things that have happened in my life, and I've had people message me or call me, and just thank me for being super open and how they could relate to a lot of those things, but they've never heard anyone.
how did your wife I mean, presumably it was Rohypnol or something of that nature. You obviously persuaded her in a particular manner, but how did she? What is it that she would say about you, and particularly at the moment that you met? Was it a particularly nice thing that happened? I mean, presumably it was, but I mean, how did you meet her, and what would she have said? What would she say about you now?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I met her, I was on a trip visiting a friend in Chicago, and she managed a bar slash restaurant there. And it's a funny story because I walked in with my buddy and I saw her under the lights, and I was like, wow, that's a very attractive woman. But because my mom raised me with manners, I would never approach a woman in that situation because my mindset was they probably get approached all the time. I'm not going to be that guy, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so this place had 2 floors. So I was walking up the stairs, and someone tapped me on the back, and I turned around, and it was this little blonde haired girl, my wife's brunette. And the blonde haired girl, she had a folded up piece of paper in her hand, and she's like, my friend thinks you're cute. Here's her number. She's too shy to say something to you. She's hiding in the bathroom. And for a split second, I was like, wow, I wonder if it's the girl that I saw. And sure enough, I opened up the piece of paper, text her like, hey, we're not in 6th grade. You can come talk to me. Promise I'll be nice. And sure enough, that's who ended up being. And we just hit it off from there. Um, and yeah, started this kind of long distance relationship. What she would say about me now? Yeah, that's a good question. I think she would say that I'm a loving husband. I hope that she would say that I try to be better for us and for myself and for our family each and every day. I know she'd definitely say that things haven't been easy because marriage is hard work, if we're being real about it. But yeah, and I hope she would say that that we fought hard for our marriage and for each other.
Well, it's amazing that you met. You actually, the first relationship that you had with her was direct response, because she wrote out a number, put it on a piece of paper, mind you, not sort of digital, piece of paper,
And
and
wrong with
that
bits
was
of paper.
hand delivered to you. So what can I say? I've been talking
Yeah.
to people all this time about
My direct
direct mail.
response, Graham. This is right in your sweet spot.
Well,
Direct
it
mail.
is, and I recognise it in these events. But I mean, perfect. I mean, what a great story.
Yeah, that's funny. That's like almost an original form of direct mail.
It sure
Oh,
is, and it worked.
Mike, if you haven't realized already, that's where Graham cut his teeth.
Well,
Physical mail
yeah.
shots through the post, landing on people's doormats.
Well, I still do, and because I love it. I love just the impre. I mean, when you receive mail, It
Yeah.
There's a sense of anticipation. There's a sense of I don't know, something special's just about to happen, and then you open it up, and it's either right or wrong or whatever. The point is, there's a sense of anticipation. How many times do you get that when you see an email drop into your email box?
Yeah, hardly ever.
If it was Grant Cardone so writing to me saying, by the way, Graham, I've got a jet. I've got a jet for you for the weekend. Then, yeah, fair enough. I might be sort of tempted to open it. But seriously, though, I genuinely I love that story. Well, she took the initiative clearly. I mean, you were well brought up, but she had to do all the hard running.
Yeah, she's definitely a woman who knows what she wants and she's not afraid to go get it. And that's what I love about her.
There's so many things about your life that's clearly making you a great marketer. And I can see the parallels here, how you really listen to people. And the one thing that our membership of the Guild talks about is this: it's almost like getting into the mind of, you almost have to be the person that you're writing to, or you're making your offer to. You have to get into that person's mind and see it from their point of view first. Is there something about that you have developed through your experiences in life?
Yeah, I think all these experiences have given me an enormous amount of empathy or or the ability to empathize with people and to really at a deep level see and understand their hurt, and maybe some of their fear around that. And all those things are, as you know, go directly into crafting a compelling message that gets somebody to take a specific action.
I mean, you're an amazing person, I have to say. But the one thing that's really got me intrigued, and anybody watching this on YouTube will be intrigued as well, especially if you're not from America, because you've got a jumper on that's got some kind of
Chicago Bulls.
It's the Chicago Bulls. Kevin, you probably got there before me, didn't you?
Wow. Well, Graham, I was guessing. I had a fair idea from those two horns that were coming up that it might well be the Chicago Bulls.
Now, forgive me, but I don't quite know what they do. Is it baseball or is it football? Is it
Basketball?
basketball? Oh, right. Okay. Well, well, I didn't even know that. But you're quite tall. Did you play when you were a kid?
Yeah, I did. Like on a good day, I'm maybe 6'3". Yeah, so I played in high school, I played in college, and then I played a little bit afterwards as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. So was it ever kind of semi-pro, or was it just for fun?
No, yeah, I was semi-pro. I actually signed a contract to go on tour with the Harlem Globetrotters, but I didn't go through with that, and that's a story for another time. But yeah, I was very passionate about basketball. It was actually my biggest outlet growing up because it allowed me to escape what was going on at home. So there was literally days, around the age of 14, 15, 16 years old where I would literally ride my bike to the park in the morning and stay there all day because I didn't want to deal with the reality that was going on at home. So I don't play a lot now, but when I look back on that time in my life, like God really used that to help save me, to be honest, because that got me through a lot of tough things. You know, I mentioned earlier, my brother took his life when I was in college, and I almost didn't go back. But my grandpa, who played an instrumental role in my life, he really encouraged me to go back and finish what I had started. And so I ended up going back, and that physical activity, the camaraderie of the guys on the team, and all that really allowed me to take my mind off of what had just happened and help me to physically process that and deal with it. So yeah, basketball was a huge part of my life.
I really appreciate the personal side to this conversation. but there are going to be some people who tuned in because they wanted some tips about
Mhm.
high ticket sales campaigns.
Yeah.
And they'll be thinking, I'm bloody cheated here. He was going to tell me all about high ticket sales campaigns. If you had just a few minutes now, just to give us an idea of the things that if I've got a high ticket offer,
Yeah.
what's your sort of schedule of things that you would be thinking about to sort of improve? Because you have organized a sort of a methodology that improves that for people. So
Yeah.
give us a sense of what that is.
Yeah, I'll actually give you the biggest breakthrough we've probably had in the last 12 months. So one of the problems we were running into with Cardone University is Grant's company and the team there, they have a ridiculous um history and what's the word I'm looking for? They're extremely good at taking a business that does, anywhere from 1 million to 10 million and adding 30 to 40% to the revenue in 90 days.
Wow.
I mean, they've got that dialed into a T. We've got thousands of testimonials from business owners proving that out. They do that better than anybody. But what we found is sales training can be a hard sell, right? Uh, Businesses need it, but they don't necessarily want it. They just want the outcome, right? More sales, more profit, their people to make more, et cetera, et cetera. So when I first started there, we were trying to go directly for that sale. And we had a big breakthrough when we were thinking about it. It's like, okay, if people need that, how do we construct this in a way that gets them where we can give them something that they actually want, but then leads them into what they actually need. So we actually came up with a 90-day onboarding playbook is what we call it. It's the exact process that Grant takes all of his salespeople through from the time they join the company through their first 90 days, day by day by day. And we package that up into a free downloadable. And in there, it incorporates the training into it. So it gives people a taste. And that's been the conversions on that have been 5 times higher than what they were before because of that. So when I'm working with Grant's team and we're thinking about how we can apply that towards other campaigns, or I'm consulting with my other clients, I mean, that's become my methodology. What is some of the best stuff that you have that we can package up into like almost a little bite-sized taste that will still get them a good outcome, but it kind of leads them to this limitation. And that limitation is, okay, this is working, but I want more. So the only way to get more is to engage in whatever the actual full offer is that you're trying to make them. Does that make sense?
Very much. I mean, if you got a James Patterson book and you've got to that point where you've got the what Flint would call story click, that you've got it, you can think you can see the rest of the book, but it ends. There's just blank pages from that point on. The compunction would be enormous for some people to want to fill those pages with writing. So yeah, I can understand that sort of. And I suppose it's the crack cocaine model as well, isn't it?
Yeah, probably a little bit of it for sure. Yeah, I mean, people love the playbook. I mean, I think another part of that is right. As markets go through cycles, they get saturated, and people go from wanting to learn less to wanting to just give me what works,
Yeah.
right? So that they can install it. And that playbook is, here's this process. Here it is. If you want to install it in your company, here's the piece that you need, which is the sales training. And so it's just a natural extension that makes them come to that realization on their own. And then now they're jumping on a call, knowing what to expect, not feeling like they're going to be sold. So it just increases the throughput of everything
Kevin,
by a lot.
you have this program that you're coming up with that you should be hiring Mike.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting one here. How do you sell training? Because people will have a feeling, oh, I need to do training. I probably need to keep up to date. I need to learn new things, whatever. But it's actually very difficult to make them take the actual decision. You
Mm.
know? We know fine well with dealing with finance folk, well, the first thing they'll get cut corporately if cash flow is looking a bit tight or whatever is the training budget. So
Mm.
you're into a very difficult market to sell into. So I can really, really see Mike's approach here that says, give them a real reason why this is part of a process, part of an improvement they've got to do. And we've actually found that one of the biggest things for us lately have been the idea of boot camps. Now, AI, automation, finance transformation have been big, big topics. So we found that actually selling people the boot camp that takes the finance team and tells them how to do finance transformation is the equivalent of the big tickets that we're talking about here. And it's
Yeah.
not learning it in theory. It's giving them the practical steps to go through a process and actually transform the finance function. Now,
Mm.
it's as much a piece of handheld consulting, but getting them to do the work rather than the consultants do the work, as it is a piece of academic training. It's got to have a lot of practical stuff built into it.
Yeah, I love that, Kevin. I think for a long time, at least in the direct response information uh world, there was always this thought of like teach them the how, but don't give them the what.
Mm.
And this this turns that on their head. You know,
Yeah.
we teach them the how and we give them a portion of the what,
Mm.
right? Obviously, we can't give the whole what away, otherwise we wouldn't have a business. But being super generous in both those categories uh, really helps um, endure prospects to you. And I think it goes back to something Flint really teaches in Mech Labs, and that is, you know, what is your customer first objective? What does your customer really want?
Mm.
And is there a way for you to give that to them,
Mm.
right? Without any type of commitment on their end.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
I think that's a really interesting model to explore, Mike. It's one that we debate all the time. How much do you give away for free and how much do you charge for? And we've almost come to the conclusion that you can give up to 90% of it free. People will still buy the 10% that's missing.
Mm. Wow. This is a subject of probably another podcast, Kevin, but
Yeah.
for now, Mike King, you've been an absolutely first class guest, and I'm so privileged that you've said yes and you're coming on to the podcast because today you've been a great guest on the Next 100 Days podcast. Thank you.
So, Graham, wow. You know, know, like, and trust is something that has always been said. We've got quite a backstory there. And we've
Mm.
been talking about how personal and work overlap and what drives Mike.
Mm.
I think that, there's something about know, like, and trust the individual is where the relationship comes from.
I think his life experiences, as he said, has given him a really deep understanding of empathy when it comes to understanding other people. And from a marketer, you know, it it's the ability to see that person's life experience and expectations of you that is core to getting that result for them. So I'm really impressed with the work that he does, and I'm sure that Grant Cardone is as well. But on the podcast today, we've learned so much about him personally, but also about high ticket sales campaigns as well.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to look at those superpowers, those things that light him up.
Mm.
And I'd put across to you, listener, the challenge. Do you know what your superpowers are? What are the things that light you up?
I mean, that's a real challenge. And
Well, we might have
well,
the answer to that because I've got a guest coming along in a few weeks' time, Lucia Knight, and we're going to talk all about superpowers.
oh, wow. Well, that'll be interesting, Kevin. I don't have any. So, but anyway, I'm sure you have loads. And on that note, I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.